you believe that we started recording right in the middle of 2020 with all of the COVID and lockdowns going on around us, unable to meet up? So like many a young gentleman, we turned to the internet for our entertainment. Tried to find a place where we could meet up and talk about the good, the bad, and that time that Stu saw a pelican on the canal. In order to facilitate our dreams of answering all of the big questions in film, and after a few attempts at recording via other methods to various levels of success, we found Zencastr, a super easy web-based one-stop shop for recording. Log in and you're ready to record in a matter of seconds. It doesn't take a tech genius to get high quality audio or video. And on top of that, the one time we have had an issue, the fact that the multi-layered backups are stored locally means it's easily fixed all in browser. There are plenty of tools you need when you start podcasting, so let Zencastr take that headache away as it offers a place to record, edit and distribute all from one website. Any lazy bones Jones can pick up and play and have studio quality audio or 4K video put out for the world to see when using Zencastr. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code CAGEFIGHTING and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. And now, hit the music. Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man Andy Gillis here. Hope everyone is keeping well in the world right now.
Hello everybody, Matt Guy here. Hope everybody is spectacular as we're nearly into March-ish. We're getting there. It's getting warmer. I'm not in a big snuddy thing, so it's all good.
Hello everyone, Stu here for your pleasure. It's only getting warmer. It was the first day of shorts of the year today. Popped into work for quite hungover after latest London expedition yesterday. But the shorts had to go on. It was nothing to do with being hungover. It was just the fact that it was actually warm. So it's quite welcome now. I'm done. I'm done with it now. I'm done with the cold. It's full on heat wave there for anyone.
See, I think I've been wearing shorts pretty much every day. Even I don't think I've stopped wearing them since last year. To be honest, I don't think it's been cold at all. It's been 24/7 shorts, apart from that one time I had to go into the office because they would probably look at me funny if I rocked up in shorts in the office.
You finally passed that kind of old man area where you can wear shorts in the snow.
Yeah, I think that's it, definitely.
But for order of service though, before we start, something that was mentioned on the end of a former another podcast, which you may have listened to 2 days ago, but so yes, this Sugar Puffs being renamed.
To what? Are they to what?
They were renamed 10 years ago.
Were they not always Sugar Puffs?
Yeah, but they're not called Sugar Puffs anymore.
Oh, what are they called?
And they haven't been for 10 years.
That's news to me.
Honey Monster Puffs, apparently. Which I call bollocks. I call bollocks straight away. Yeah. I said, this hasn't happened. But then we looked it up. Honey Monster Puffs. It looks very similar. The packaging hasn't really changed, and he's obviously there front and centre. And it's got Puffs written in big words. 10 years ago, apparently.
I'm not sure I'm buying that.
I need to tell you about something that happened to me, food related. No, I'm not. I really hate the use of the word like woke and stuff like that. And it's not me. I'm a left-leaning, Labour voting, union card-carrying son of a bitch. And I'm proud of it. However, I went to buy a McPlant the other day from love a McPlant. Tastes amazing. Brilliant. And I asked them to put real cheese on it. And they refused. They flat out refused to put a normal slice of cheese on it. As if there's any fucking milk in it anyway. It's not. It's that American processed plastic cheese. There's no actual cow in it at all, really. Let's be honest. And they wouldn't do it. They were like, it's a vegan item on the menu. And I was like, well, listen, I appreciate the converted sister. I get that. More power to it. But just replace that cheese with the normal cheese, please. But they refused to do it. And they were like, you can buy cheese and put it on yourself. And I was like, what? Surely the vegan cheese is more expensive than the normal cheese in terms of like manufacture. It probably goes through a more, arduous manufacture, and it's not as bought in bulk as the other cheese. So surely the cheese I want is cheaper. Anyway, what I ended up having is my McPlant and then a separate box with a slice of cheese in it that was stuck to the bottom of the box, so I couldn't even get the cheese out when I got the burger home.
Why is there no video evidence of this? This is content.
I've got a picture of it on my phone. I'll send it in the group. We can maybe, with the power of editing, just at this point, superimpose a picture in.
Yeah.
But I couldn't believe it, and I was just like, what has this world come to? Like, well, there we go. That's my food problem of the week.
It's probably a spec thing that they can't do it, because if they did it and then an actual vegan, it could be a trick. It could be like an evil vegan trick to get you sacked because you're compromising them. It could be something as simple as that. It's almost like how my niece started working the old spoons now, and she said she had one guy come up and ask for a lemonade, which is okay. Not heard of this before, but we do sell lemonade, all whites as well. Remember the ad? Well, no, you're not old enough for the all whites advert at this point. You're saying that, but she said, "Do you want a lemon in it as well?" Because obviously on the side, he went, "No, I'm allergic to lemon." And she was like, "Yeah, but it's lemonade." He went, "Yeah, I know, but I don't want the lemon. I'm allergic to lemon." And she had to double check with one of the people who were more experienced than her, just in case she was allowed to do it, because he'd stated that he was allergic to lemon. But basically, he just didn't like lemons. He liked lemonade. I mean, that's like me. I don't like oranges, but I like orange juice. But I wouldn't say I'm allergic to it. But she still had to check because she wasn't sure.
Let's revisit this, Stu. Is it orange juice as in like, I'm going to pour me a glass of OJ, or you're on about like orange squash?
Oh, no, I like a glass of OJ. Smooth though, no bits.
I don't like bits, if I'm being honest. I know someone's going to come back and say, "You children." Like,
Sunny Ding's obviously better, but we can't get any more.
Yeah, no, it's not. And you are both children. You should have the pulp. It's the best bit.
Is it though?
Oh, it is. It's lovely. It gives you that bit of added texture.
Yeah. The problem with pulp is, if I drank a glass of orange juice and then immediately threw it up again, that's what it would be like with the pulp added. Like, it's like the chunky bits that your body doesn't.
Right. So the texture is what puts you off, because it's
like, yeah, it's not. This is a film-related podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, again, we mentioned about body fluids, and it's nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
But obviously, pulp of any kind, food or band-wise, is quite shit. So,
well,
that's what she was.
That's crossing the line. That is.
That's it. Right.
So you won't have orange squash then? That's your problem.
Oh yeah, I'll have orange squash. I've got no problem with orange squash or orange juice.
Right.
I just don't like oranges as a fruit. I've tried them. They're fine. Well, I prefer not to eat them. Give me an apple. Give me a good apple every day of the week, but not orange.
You know what's better than eating a mandarin?
Depends if it's a mandarin out.
Eat a mandarin out.
I mean, this is all top quality content for the trip. QuestionCast, isn't it? I think.
QuestionCast, yes.
Penciled in for like October, I think, gents. I'm already on it. We'll move on to some film news and get back on track, though, I think. Starting off, so we're obviously recording Sunday night, as you know, but to everyone else. So the BAFTAs have just been announced. Christopher Nolan has now won the Best Director at the BAFTAs, at the DGAs, which is the Directors Guild of America. He's won the Golden Globe and he's won the Critics' Choice. So he's the best director by some margin, it seems. He's obviously heavily favoured for the Oscars, especially because the Oscar board is basically the same board as the DGAs. So it looks like it. Matt, surely this is his year. So no.
You'd think so, wouldn't it? And, you know, there's so much justification for all of the plaudits, I think, as well, for so many different things that, yeah, it's hard to see past a kind of star-studded year for him in terms of like the awards and plaudits and everything like that.
Yeah, without a doubt. Stu, are you on the same bandwagon? It's got to be him. I mean, I know Scorsese, obviously, he always gets like an honorary bump, and Killers of the Flower Moon was an excellently directed film, but it is Oppenheimer's time, isn't it? It is Nolan's to take home.
Yeah, I mean, I said it at the time, I said it after I watched it for the first time, that it was in my top 5 films ever, straight away. And it's taking the recency bias out of that, it ain't changed. It's almost perfect for me. I love that film. Well, obviously I don't love it because it's not very fun, but it's exceptionally well made in every aspect, down to the minutest of detail. It's a masterpiece, and of course he deserves it. It's not a travesty, which we'll get onto later. It's well deserved, and I don't think anyone can really argue it, really, other than Barbie fans.
Yeah, I think we'll probably come back to Christopher Nolan at some point in the future, because I think we have seen pretty much all of his films between us, and we could probably do like a ranking tier, try and get them into some sort of order, because they're all great, but some are greater than others. I think it's a conversation to be had at some point on a future podcast. Moving on, Barry Keoghan is set to star in a film about the final days of Saddam Hussein. It's going to be directed by Johan Renck, who is the director of Chernobyl. The film is called Ammo Saddam. It is based on the novel The Prisoner in His Palace, a story about a dozen men who arrive in Iraq and are assigned to guard a high-value detainee, which is Saddam Hussein, during the final months of his life. Obviously, we don't know much else about it. I'm assuming neither of you have read that book either. But Chernobyl, that was one of the best pieces of TV show of the 21st century, wasn't it, Stu?
Yeah. It had no right being that good. And the fact that it was... I haven't watched it again. I don't really want to watch it again. It was horrifying. But again, like what we said about Oppenheimer, it was so well done, and it got people watching it who you'd never expect to watch that kind of thing, just because and being buried on Sky Atlantic, wasn't it? It was buried on, I think, at first, and for something like that to kind of cross over, and obviously through means and the high seas of ways of getting hold of it, for it to be part of the mainstream conversation for something so horrible yet so perfect and so well done at the same time, everyone involved in that show deserves recognition and a chance to do something further down the line. And sign me up for this. I don't even care what it's about. I couldn't care less about Saddam Hussein. I mean, if they're looking for someone to play Saddam Hussein with a big beard who's a very pale complexion, 2 out 3 ain't bad. But yeah, he's obviously he's great, isn't he? We've all seen everything that he's got to give and more. Yeah, bring it on. It's so weird sounding, and I've got no idea what it's even going to be. But I don't care now at this point. Most things he's in are good. Taking away 2 films that I hate in that list. Yeah, day one. Yeah,
but you wouldn't say that the films that you disliked, you wouldn't say that he was bad in.
Oh no,
Would you?
No,
he always gives a very good performance in whatever he does.
Most people in Banshees are good. Most of them are. I just don't like that film.
Yeah, I mean, I've been reading the reviews of the book, and it sounds like it's a very powerful, moving, people figuring out like where they are in the world and their purpose and that kind of thing. So it sounds like it's going to be a deep and meaningful exploration. more so than just a straight retelling of the execution of Saddam. Matt, so yeah, Chernobyl, it felt like, I mean, it was 2019, so it was pre-Tiger King, but it was one of those Tiger King type shows that everybody did seem to watch. I mean, I remember listening to the Football Ramble and they were talking about it on there, and obviously they don't really talk about anything other than football, so it did seem to capture the zeitgeist somewhat, didn't it, that one?
Yeah, it really did. And it was interesting because it attacked people at so many different angles. And I know it's going to sound like ridiculous to make the comparisons of this, but you had people that used to play like the Modern Warfare Call of Duty games that were interested in it because of like one of the levels in the Modern Warfare franchise, because it was all about like Chernobyl and everything else. And it just had that reach because it just, I don't know where this fell in line with kind of Game of Thrones finale and where it's sat, if it had already finished by this, but because it's HBO, wasn't it? This was it HBO? Like, yeah. And everybody used to, I can't remember who it was. It was, I think it was in I Love You Man, where like he makes a reference saying HBO, they're just so good, aren't they? And she goes, yeah, they are, really are. It was that. It came in at a time when I think we were really at appointment viewing again for a while. There were things that were on that were like, you absolutely have to watch it at the time it comes out. And then this came out and it was like, oh, just another quality show that is out there. And I absolutely loved it. I must have watched the first episode more in like a 12-month period than I've watched of anything, because the first episode was so impactful. It was so impressively done. And the fact that, disgusting, I forgot his surname. It's Paul Ritter, is it? Paul Ritter. Obviously, he plays the guy at the start, the scientist who is in charge of the plant at the time. And then, of course, coming from like Friday Night Dinner to that was the weirdest feeling of emotions and stuff, and he did it so well. Yeah, I had a lot of time for that show. I'll probably just get it back on the loop because of just the mention of it makes me want to watch it again.
I mean, you just mentioned about it felt like it was the start of appointment viewing. I just had a quick look at other things that were released in 2019. Umbrella Academy, phenomenal. The Act was brilliant, and like the whole story about Gypsy Rose Blanchard is still sort of rumbling on now. For All Mankind started. The first season of Servant was brilliant. It sort of went off the board a little bit, but that first season was excellent. Swamp Thing was a really good show as well that didn't get seen and was cancelled before the first episode came out and ended up being brilliant. Watchmen, The Boys. 2019 was a banner year for TV. Really good. So moving on, Joseph Quinn has been announced along with Vanessa Kirby, Eben Moss-Backrack and Pedro Pascal as the Fantastic Four. Know nothing else about this at this point other than those four people are going to be playing the main four characters in this one. Some rumours have been suggesting that it's going to be set back in the 1960s, so it'll be a different flavour to everything we've seen in the MCU. Matt, you're very much out of the loop on the MCU. Would this be the kind of thing that would have you interested? I mean, it's got a very good cast, hasn't it, if nothing else?
Yeah, I suppose. So do any of the Live Aid singles, and I don't like them either. So, Fantastic Four, especially, are like the dirt worst of all of those worlds as well. Like, I've never seen anything about the Fantastic Four outside of the Lego form, the format of the Lego games and stuff, that's ever made me want to get involved with Fantastic Four. Like, I don't know if it's like in that world they're a deep cut. I don't know, but I just got zero interest in the Fantastic Four at all. And I know, well, we're going to talk about, I'm sure, in one of the listener questions actually, about a certain film that's come out recently that was described by a friend of the show, Ash Dolan, as something like a wet plop or something like that. It doesn't interest me in the slightest. Who's gonna? What's the name of the one that's got really bad eczema? The
Thing.
The Thing. Which one of them is going to be the Thing?
The guy from The Bear.
Oh, okay. That could
So-
be okay.
Man who gets angry gets angrier.
Is that basically it? Andy, are you with us?
Is it a hologram?
We've lost him to the ether.
Well, I can see him.
But he can't see us. This is like a horror show. Like we could see him.
He can't hear us.
Jock out. Keep this bit in as well on the audio. I need to tell him not to edit it. It's brilliant. For those that are listening to this, we can see Andy. He can't hear us. God, man. Yeah.
So the thing is played by Angry Man from The Bear, who gets angry again, but with bad eczema. So
God, with psoriasis.
well, he needs a bit of moisture on himself. I mean, a weird thing about this one that Fantastic Four was the first kind of comic thing I was ever exposed to, because my granddad had the anthologies, I suppose they'd be called, compilation books of the 60s cartoons. I don't know why, because he had no interest in comics at all, apart from Fantastic Four. So as a kid, that's what I remember reading first. It was still quite awful, but it was the first I remember seeing. So I've got a bit of love for it. Not the second film, obviously, because it was the first reboot, because it was awful. But this cast makes it interesting to me. And I know we've been burnt before, and we got burnt by Eternals. And setting this in the 60s does make no sense whatsoever, unless they're going to do it so it's a 60s where on one universe we've never seen before, on one multiverse, so this is how they're going to cross it in and all this kind of stuff. Because otherwise you're going to end up with the same thing of, well, where have these four been then for the last God knows how many years when all the world's been ending? Well, these lot have been pissing about doing. That doesn't make any sense. So you'd have to set it in Earth, whatever, 1963 or whatever, and blend them in that way. That'd work. But
What's the female one's power?
Invisibility.
Because one of them's bendy, isn't he? Stretch Armstrong,
Yeah.
and you've got what was his
Human
name?
Torch.
The Human Torch. The Human Torch was denied a bank loan. It's like Von Burgundy, isn't it? And then you had him from The Bear. I got you.
Yeah, because like to be honest, I think all the films that we've seen so far have been absolute dog shit. The first two, no. So yeah, actually, to be fair, the first one was terrible. There was a reason it was never released. That is still the best one that we've seen. The two with Jessica Alba were dog dirt. They were so bad, and they even were like so badly written. They made the same joke in both of the films. It was pathetic. And then the last one, which was Josh Trank directed, was just a mess. And by all accounts, it was because studio interference. And you could sort of tell where he just dropped off, because it got halfway through and then just died a death. So I don't have a lot of hope for this film, being that the track record has been as bad as it has. But it is Pedro, which sort of does make me
have to.
probably give it a chance. Because I really like Pedro, I like Backrack, I really like Vanessa Kirby. But it's probably going to be one where I'll wait and see what the reviews are like before making a decision on whether or not to waste my time seeing it. Because there's nothing else that Marvel have put out or have got coming out that looks even remotely interesting to me. So by the time this comes out towards the end of next year, which is the apparent release date, probably going to be so far out of the loop, it's just going to be not worth my time trying to watch it. So I really don't know what to do. It sort of would make sense if they went back to the 60s, purely because that's when they started effectively. So the Fantastic Four are the first family of Marvel, and they started it all off in the 60s. So if you want to go back and look at where it all started out from, potentially, and then there's all stuff with the Ultimate Universe. And so I do think the multiverse nonsense could play a big role in this one, whether we want it to or not at this point.
Yeah, well, that could be. these things don't tend to only take a year, do they? So it kind of if they've only got a year, I mean, unless it's one of them things where it's been announced because filming's going to start like tomorrow, and they're going to do it all in 2 months, and then the rest is going to be the post production and actual proper CG. Then fine, but it seems like it's going to be rushed and it's going to look awful.
That is the worry, isn't it? But they're talking about it replacing Blade, which was supposed to be out the tail end of next year. But we're never seeing Blade. No, never going to make Blade. We've established this. It's not going to happen. But yeah, you are right. There is that worry that it'll just be a rushed, garbled mess again. So who knows? Who knows? We'll end with a little bit of Nick news. So we've got 2 items of Nick news. The first one is Arcadian, the post-apocalyptic monster movie, has been given a theatrical release date, and that is going to be the 12th of April. We know nothing about Arcadian other than it's going to be a monster movie. It's got a small cast, so it's probably going to be a small budget movie. I mean, obviously we'll watch it at some point. So that's something to look out for. And the other piece of news, which is something a little bit more interesting, Nicolas Cage is in talks to reprise his role as Spider-Man Noir in a TV series. Seen nothing confirming if it's going to be live action or animated. I'm just assuming it's going to be animated because Nicolas Cage is 60 years old and it might look a bit odd if he's trying to put on the spandex, I think. But Spider-Man Noir, we enjoyed the Spider-Verse films, didn't we? So surely we want more Spider-Man Noir.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like, it's fresh and, I say fresh and new enough for something that's clearly meant to be like Dick Tracy or Back in the Past and everything like that. But, I think it's like visually it could be very interesting to see as well. So if it's the whole Spider-Verse side of things is like built on the bedrock of it being like a visual feast, a visual treat on the eyes. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with it, and it should be a lot of fun. So yeah, I'd be definitely up for seeing that.
Stu, I presume you take whatever they give us, because let's be honest, if it is Lord and Miller, they've done nothing wrong ever. I don't think, like, everything I've seen of theirs has been fantastic.
Yeah, I just so when you mention this, I don't want to believe it, because as soon as that film came out, that's what everyone wanted. They just wanted more of him because he was great in it, and we saw him for mere minutes on screen in total.
Yeah,
that film. But it's so weird and interesting, and the fact that he's openly talked about wanting to do TV, this makes perfect sense that this is his way in, because he doesn't have to do anything other than being in a recording studio. So let's just hope it happens, for not just for our sake and hashtag content, but the fact that it's actually a good idea.
Yeah, completely. Really something I'd be looking forward to. And to be honest, I kind of want them to do a series of lots of different Spider-Men. I think it'd be a good idea and give us a lot of different visual styles, a bit like the Marvel What If series. They could do that just with the Spider-Verse. I think it'd be quite an interesting and fun thing. The worry would be is you just don't want it to end up being overkill. But any more Spider-Man Noir, and I'd be well for it. Right, that is the news for this week. Matthew, have we had any listener questions?
Yes, we've had a few ones. One of the first ones, which I thought was really sweet, is from a friend of the show now, Mike Evans. He's been in touch quite a lot with us recently, and we really do appreciate it. Didn't have a question so much, but just wanted to know, are there any funny drunk stories, and how did we all meet? So I'll go with the how we met bit. It was all through Wolves Fancast. And Andy, I'm fairly certain you were on the first show I did on Fancast. So I was very nervous. I had a little notepad to come in and so I looked well researched. And then we had found out, I think, just through osmosis, had mutual hobbies and stuff like wrestling and the like. And then through Stu, same kind of thing, through Fancast. And then it was like a COVID thing, wasn't it, for this? Where you just had a concept and an idea, and then I'm guessing you had the same conversation with Stu, and then here we are, and that's how it ended up kind of forming as a podcast, really. like one of the drunker things for me would have been when me and you, Andy, went out before we knew it was the last night on Earth, which was the night we went to Planet before the world ended and we were put into lockdown, and we met. Was that the night we met Eddie Kingston and all those from?
It was. Friday the 13th of 2020.
Yeah, he had the most leathery hands I've ever met of any person in the world. They were like rubbing against sandpaper. But yeah, and Stu, do you remember much of Fancast 400?
Which one was that one?
That was at the Lichgate.
Oh yeah, that was fun. That was. Yeah. You know what? Because we had the soundboard, and is that when you took it home, Andy? I can't remember.
Could have been.
I know when Dave mentioned that we were going to do a live recording of Fancast in the pub, it was all, this is going to be a really ridiculously stupid idea because no one's going to turn up, and two, the sound's going to be terrible. But actually, people did come and watch, and it was such a good fun night of just passing the microphone around of people who'd been on the Fancast years before, and at that point newbies like you two. It was a good laugh, that was. But I wasn't even remotely drunk though, as is normally the case.
Are you sure? Because I remember you swaying, doing some swaying in the Posada.
In the Posada? Oh yeah. But that was afterwards though, not during the.
Oh, not during the podcast.
Yeah.
And we've been to Gifford a few times, haven't we? And had a few knees up in the Gifford.
Yeah, well, we went to that one when me and Andy left at 3:30 in the morning when it was supposed to have been COVID restriction time as well. When we were sitting outside.
Yeah, I remember that. Fucking hell. But yeah, I remember that night when you and I ended up in Planet, Matt, because we were in the Gifford after the wrestling, and we had a nice night, and it got to that point where it's like, let's see what the next song is. If it's crap, we'll go. And then all of a sudden, it was 3 hours later, and we were still going on. It was class.
Was that the night that we were groomed in the Bilston Weatherspoons?
Yes, that.
We were almost invited to someone's sex dungeon. Did you know them, Stu? Was it staff?
Yeah, I knew that.
Yes.
I'm not going to name them. I know exactly who they are. Though they have a reputation for such behaviour.
In another universe, Andy, we were Butch and the other guy from Pulp Fiction, but we don't say it. They're still there now.
I was thinking more Hostel. Yeah,
it really probably would have been that level. Yeah.
I'll tell you the first
night. Sorry, the first night I remember meeting you, Stu, was like we'd been talking for ages, but we'd never actually met on a podcast or anything at this point. And we both went to Brentford away. So we met, just ran in the pub, we met, and that was the start of our friendship. And it was a match where we absolutely battered them for 90 minutes, but it took us until the death to actually finally get the winner. And that was when you fucking pounced on me. And I was like trying to hold you up while celebrating. It was almost like, you know, that scene in like Dirty Dancing, not that it lifts her up by the stomach, but where she jumps on him with the legs wrapped round her and leans back. That's what Stu was doing to me while I was trying to hold him up. It was that's a way to make an impression.
To be fair, it was the terracing as well at Brentford in the old stadium. But yeah, the thing of this was, that we had that idea for ages, and we just couldn't be asked to sort it out, because we said we should do a spin-off of film and TV and games, but we couldn't figure out a way to do it. That was years before then, and then obviously COVID, and we had nothing else to do, so that's where he came from.
Well, in the same kind of vein, Stu, Matt Cunnington wants to know, did Stu really see a pelican on the canal, and how drunk was he? So, for those that have already joined us in the last few months, Stu, retell the tale. For those that are long-term listeners and sufferers of this podcast, you may already know this, but Stu, tell us the tale.
I was just walking home and there was a pelican on the canal. I wasn't drunk. I was walking home from work and I thought, because there's herons there sometimes and there's normal things. And I saw it and I thought, that's a pelican. And I thought, well, there can't be a pelican because it's in Wensfield and it doesn't make any sense. But it was there. It was looking at me. And And then he flew away. But then I looked it up, and he had escaped from Dudley Zoo, and it actually had happened. And so when I found that out, I realised I hadn't gone mad. But it was there. It was baby pelican on the canal, on the towpath.
It's quite a way for it to have emigrated, though, from Dudley Zoo, isn't it? It's
well, if it's gone down the canal, Black Country Canal Network, it's not like
Just hops on a barge.
Yeah, well, it can fly, can't they? They take like a chicken, and I don't know how long pelicans can fly in the air for. It's just one of them things. It's clearly it's escaped somehow, and it was there, and then it flew away.
I'm fairly certain when this chat came up the first time around, I mentioned before, but I'll tell you about the time when I saw a peacock on the Techno Road because it had escaped from Mother India in takeaway. They had their own peacock, and it escaped into the road and just in traffic, causing absolute chaos and spreading its big wings out, or all the patterns and stuff like that. Yeah, it was incredible. To be fair.
That's like that legendary video that goes around Twitter occasionally about the guy walking his llama. Remember that one? The llama, you cunt.
Wonderful. Back on to more film-related news, as this podcast seems to be digressing at an alarming rate twice now. Joshua Buckley wants to know, would Nick Cage have been able to have saved Madame Web from being such a disaster, Andy?
I mean, I haven't seen it yet. I've obviously only heard the reviews, and it does feel like the reviews have very much been, it's bad, but you've got to see it, which is more than can be said for a lot of Marvel films recently. It seems to be a fun kind of a mess. And I'm sure Nicolas Cage would add to that. We've seen some of his absolute worst, haven't we? And he sort of makes most of them watchable. Left Behind is a god-awful film, but the Nicolas Cage of it all does make that film a lot more watchable, so he probably would have done.
Stu, what about yourself? Have you seen it yet?
No, I'm going on Tuesday, so tomorrow when this comes out. I was just looking at the cheese picture. Jeff Delo's video review on Twitter, he's superb, and it makes me want to watch it now. It's one of them. It's obviously not been made to be shit, but the fact that it is shit, unintentionally so, could put it up there with The Room.
Oh,
well. But I think going into it, knowing how bad it is, it's got to be better, because it's like the anti-Morbius, where it's kind of like, well, the early reviews are a bit middling. It's got to be a bit of one of them. It's got to be like Venom 2, which was there. But this, everyone knows it's awful. So I'm going in there expecting it to be terrible. And if it's anything but terrible, then it's a success. I can't wait to go and see it for this reason alone, because it's like every day you get something that's so panned by every single person on earth for being awful, but in an entertaining way. And that Jeff guy said that if you like comic book films, you absolutely should see this in the cinema. And I don't know why that is, but I'm going to do it.
More power to you, Stu. If you want to put yourself through suffering, then that's in your best interest. Andrew Wright, finally, having recently watched The Iron Claw, which is great, by the way, there is a significant part of a family story which is missed out. So on that note, which film that's based on a true story leaves out or changes the best or most interesting parts of the actual events? Andy, is there anything that you can think of?
The only film that I can think of that I think was very fast and loose with how it went down was The Greatest Showman. Now, I know obviously that was a musical, so you've got to take that out of it. But just the whole way they presented P.T. Barnum as this good guy who's just putting on a big show and helping people, rather than the exploitative piece of shit that he actually was, making money off people with disabilities. I can't think of any specific moment that was missed out of a film or anything, but the characterization of having Hugh Jackman, they obviously couldn't have him being a villain, so they made him into the good guy in this film, which was just massively incorrect.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Stu, what about you? Is there anything that you can think of where the story that was told wasn't quite as good as it could have been because there were maybe more controversial things that were missed out. Maybe like I think when we eventually get the Michael Jackson one, whenever that comes around, obviously they'll I'm sure be hard and fast with the truth there about what's going on. What anything that comes to mind?
I mean, there's inaccuracies in Bohemian Rhapsody, isn't there, about like the way things went in terms of Live Aid and stuff like that. But again, it's the whole thing of these historical films. Do you want to be a documentary or do you want to be a film?
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you're putting yourself out as a biopic, as that kind of was, you can't piss about with the truth. It doesn't make any sense doing that. The obvious one is U-571 because the Americans did not capture the Enigma machine and it wasn't by Bon Jovi. So that is clearly very wrong. That's factually incorrect about who got the machine that broke the code to end World War II. That's wrong. I don't know. That one didn't make any sense at the time. I mean, I knew that obviously because of my granddad and stuff like that, but that one annoyed me more than anything else because you are fundamentally changing history for no reason other than to wank yourselves off of it as being the best.
Well, I didn't expect such an impassionate speech there.
I was talking about U-571 the other day. That's why it's fresh in my mind.
I mean, the real answer here is 0 Dark 30 because it doesn't show the clip where John Cena mentions it at the end of like a pay-per-view event where he goes, "We have captured and eliminated Osama bin Laden," and he does it as if he was the one that went in and captured him and then came back out and gave him an FU or an STFU and then left.
I love how that clip still like reappear. Like someone posted it today on Twitter. Every few months, it just keeps coming back up, and I watch it every time because it's absolutely bonkers.
Eliminated him to a permanent end. Osama bin Laden. It's brilliant. Thank you, friend of the show and follower of cage fighting, John Cena.
You know what? Talking about things that keep coming up all the time. I mean, obviously, the gif of you shaking your head, Andy, but that was another one from a drunken night out where that went to a different turn that we expected to start off with the night when we ended up... You as well, enjoying yourself listening to Steps. Which
I didn't enjoy Steps, I enjoyed the night.
You knew all the words.
What is it? You're just making this up?
It's all there. It's in video form. We've got the evidence. You knew the words. You enjoyed yourself. Then you realise where you were and what you were doing.
You became sentient. You understood. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. As always, you ask them, we will answer them. The sillier, the better as well, please.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Matthew, what have you been watching lately?
So, I have a horrible thing to admit. Not only have I never seen Modern Family, which I think is semi-acceptable because I think there'll be more people out there that haven't seen it than you realise. And it's quite fun. 25 minute, just little shots of dopamine. Fine. But I'd never seen Curb Your Enthusiasm either. So I started watching it, and I'm happy to admit, at the start, it's not that I didn't get it, but I just didn't find it that funny for something that's adored as much as it is. But then it just started to click, like, how funny it is, and it's everything that's not said that's funny in that show. It's everything. It's the looks and the silences and the perfectly timed silences and just those things. And the only thing that I need to know, and any of our fine American friends on the listeners will tell me, like, are people just that aggressive in real life? Like the one I watched the other day where it was he blocked in somebody and he refused to pay the captain's tip. Like, and then the captain had blocked him in on the car park, and they were just like super aggressive with each other. And I was like, is these how people talk to themselves in America? Is this normal? But yeah, a lot of fun so far. So I can, it started to click with me. And the other thing that's powering through is Love on the Spectrum. I mentioned in the group chat the other day. Now, most of these things come across as like a little crass and a bit exploitative, because essentially what we're doing is we're laughing at the awkwardness and the situations that people with neurodivergence, conditions have. But there's something really sweet about this show that's not. It's not there to be like a ridicule or anything like that. Yes, they get themselves into some situations that are quite amusing, but the people are always the stars of the show. It's never like a hit piece about them. They're always like, it's about the condition and it's about the families and it's about them in their quest to find love. And I know it sounds as silly as it is, but it's a really sweet program, and there's a couple of the characters in there that you genuinely are delighted for with like their progression in their lives and stuff like that. And I'm really enjoying it. And I think it's worth a watch to anybody because there's some super sweet bits in it that will like, your heart goes out to them.
It sounds like it's absolutely not the kind of thing I would have ever thought of giving a chance, but when you mentioned it and actually spoke about it the other day, it does sound a lot better than had it been on Channel 4, when I feel like they leaning to the, like they had a big thing with poverty porn, didn't they, Channel 4, and it often feels a little bit grubby, I find, whenever they've done stuff on that sort of spectrum. But it does sound a lot more interesting. Speaking of Curbed, have you got to the beloved cunt episode yet?
No, I don't believe so. No,
no. That's my favourite. Yeah, you'd know. That's my favourite. Either that or Meet the Blacks, because I love Leon. He's one of my favourite characters in anything ever. Absolutely outstanding. Stu, what have you been watching?
I want to go watch Curb again from the start. It's been a while.
Well, I started it because Jeff and Susie, they've got a podcast where they're rewatching it. So I've started from the start and I'm doing one a week with the podcast. And it is still outstanding.
Oh, that's a great idea. But you unfortunately haven't been watching that. I might start that tomorrow, actually. No, I was still paying through True Detective. It has got better. I didn't realise that when this comes out, it'll be over. It's only 6 episodes.
Yeah.
Which I thought was... I don't know how it's going to end because nothing seems to have really happened in a way, which is odd. So I'm watching that, and then I started going properly into war, which sounds as stereotypical as you can be. But I watched a 90-minute documentary on the Somme, which was that was like a reenacted thing with graphics and stuff, which is more of a documentary style than the other stuff that I'd watched. Because I watched World War II on the front line, which is the one with the colorized footage, which tells the whole story of World War II. It's 6 parts on Netflix. Really, really excellently well done. I mean, that's another one which could have gone in that question, because they talked about Italy and Greece, and there was a kind of a semi-inaccuracy in that, what they said there compared to what actually happened, which I thought, well, yeah, you're using footage and then you kind of create a narrative around something like World War II to fit the narrative of the footage you've got, which is a bit backward. But again, so I watched that. So then that got me into the natural progression of, it's time to watch Band of Brothers again. Only the second time though, because obviously I only watched it 3 years ago for the first time. Second time round, it's even better. Just wonderful piece of art that it is. And then I went to watch Bob Marley One Love, which I enjoyed. It was good. That's probably as much as I can say about it, really. It wasn't excellent in any world is going to win anything other than individual performances. Him and her, the woman who plays his wife, superb. Absolutely, you can't fault them. The performances were excellent, but the film, it was just a bit all over the place. Like, it starts off when he's 28 and it starts off with text on the screen like it's Star Wars. We're not going to talk about his growing up as his childhood, but then throughout the film it flashes back to his childhood. You thought, well, that's just a strange decision to make. Like, they're trying to meld these things into, this is happening, so we're going to flash back to something that's vaguely reminiscent of this, and it doesn't really work. it's like something you'd see on like CSI or something like that. It doesn't really work for me. It just seemed a bit badly edited, maybe. There's just something a bit off about it, but watching it in super screen for the sound alone, I ain't faulting that. Obviously, the soundtrack's going to be good. It's a Bob Marley film, if you like that kind of thing. And story was good. The stuff there I didn't know, which was, again, because we've been burnt before, I did have to check afterwards to make sure it was actually factually correct. And obviously, someone playing him who's over 6 foot when he was not over 6 foot in real life, that's an artistic decision. But he's one of his kids signed off on that casting, so who are we to judge? But yeah, it was a good 7 out of 10 film to watch. It wasn't too long, but there's 2 absolutely excellent performances out of it, so I'd give it a watch anyway, regardless of what I just said that it's a bad film.
To be honest, every review I've heard has been, yeah, it's fine. It's got no edges. Like, it's just fine. It could be better, but everyone's really pointed out the lead actress. I can't remember what her name is, but everyone's pointed her out as being the absolute star of that film. But yeah, fair enough. I have been watching a lot of Oscar films that are unremarkable, if I'm being perfectly honest. I mentioned a few short films that I really enjoyed to you. The ABCs of Book Banning, which is a short available on Paramount Plus, and it's just this excellent look at how America are 100% going to be banning books before they ban guns in the same week that however many people have been killed by guns. But that's by the by. I watched all of the animated films. Robot Dreams is a Spanish film where there's no talking, set in New York, where a dog builds a robot. And it's really weird, but really sweet as well. I quite enjoyed that. The big watch of the last week or 2 weeks has been the Royal Family rewatch that I've done. I don't think I appreciated how absolutely brilliant Liz Smith was in that show. Like, I remember enjoying it when I saw it, but I don't think I've ever done a proper rewatch of it since it was originally out way back when. But Liz Smith was a tour de force in that show and proper cracked up at some of the stuff. Oh, there's the one episode where she can't go to the toilet, and then when she leans forward and farts, and the look on her face when, like, everyone has just sort of clocked it and they're trying to stifle a laugh, and then she shuffles off up to the toilet, and like the episode where she passes away in it, like, that is absolutely heartbreaking, but it's handled so well. And I know we'd mentioned it's closer to Christmas because there was the Caroline Aherne documentary on the BBC, and it was to do with the passing of her grandmother, because apparently Caroline Aherne was really close to her grandmother, and she died shortly before she then started to write that particular episode. And you can see it is just handled with such care and such love and such beauty. I really enjoyed this rewatch of it, and like, it's gone up in my estimation. I think watching it now, being that bit older and understanding a bit more about it, like, I'm less Anthony and more, well, I'm probably not like any of them, to be perfectly honest, I don't think, but I think you just appreciate the archetypes of those characters from your own life a bit better than I probably would have done 20 odd years ago when it was initially out. But I would implore anybody to give that a rewatch. I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
It just, even at the time though, with Royal Family, it just, for me, it was like why I like Phoenix Night so much, because it's exactly what the kind of thing that I grew up with. Like, I knew people like that, who that's what their lives were. And it related to, it's just spot on, because as Phoenix Nights, I grew up in them places. I love Clubland. It's amazing in a terrible way. But in the same way, yeah, you have got people sitting around you, the old dad in a chair, and you go around and they just talk bollocks. Like, when I went around Mums today watching football, sat there, play with a puppy. No idea where anyone said to each other. We was there for 5 hours. It's just one of them things. But the football was on in the background. That's it. It was so real to life that's why it hit, and that's why it's so beloved by everyone. Do you know how well it's going to how well that translates in America or anywhere else? Because it does seem, again, both of them things are very, very English, but it's true. So watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on. My question is the next one up first. So I want to know, we're in the 1990s right now. I want to know which was the least deserving Best Picture winner of a 1990s film, and what film. It can be a fellow nominee, or it doesn't even have to have been nominated, but what film should have been the Best Picture winner for that particular year? Stu.
I mean, we know what yours is going to be, so it's not going to be Forrest Gump. The fact that Saving Private Ryan didn't win, and the absolute awful shit that Shakespeare in Love is a travesty of nature. Apparently that film's a comedy. You might to judge. I hate that film. I hate it with a passion. And I just forget the fact that Saving Private Ryan didn't win, because that is I don't think it's as good now as it was then. But back then there was nothing else like it. There just wasn't anything like it. It was groundbreaking. It was incredible. It deserved everything it got. But it didn't win because fucking Shakespeare in Love did. It doesn't make any sense, because I don't know anyone I don't know quite a few people who have even seen it. Which you think, okay, it's from the 90s. It's not that long ago in terms of cinema.
Mm-hmm.
But people, you say Shakespeare in Love, people don't know what it is, which is incredible. And these are people like in their 30s, not kids, people in their 30s who were there at the time, who don't remember this film. It's never shown anywhere. No one talks about it. Absolute bollocks.
It's interesting, because I did think about Shakespeare in Love, and the only conversation that ever seems to be had about Shakespeare in Love is that Judi Dench won the Best Supporting Actress, and I think she was on screen for like 3 minutes or something. I think, if I remember rightly, she's got the shortest time on screen of anyone who's ever won the Best Supporting Actress, and that seems to be the only conversations ever had about that film. You are absolutely right. It just, Saving Private Ryan absolutely should have won that. Yeah, it's ridiculous that it didn't. Matt, what's your pick?
Well, interesting that you should say that about Saving Private Ryan, because you're wrong. They shouldn't have won the Oscar or the Best Picture, because Life is Beautiful should have. And that's why Shakespeare in Love was my pick as well, because it's an abomination on the eyes. And there was, it surprises me that it took to Parasite for a foreign language film to win it, when the masterpiece that is Life is Beautiful existed and then didn't win to this piece of shit. I love Life is Beautiful. I genuinely do. It's so sweet. The fact that it's about the Holocaust stops it being a Christmas film, even though it's not anywhere to do with Christmas. But it could be, because it's so nice. I know it sounds like such a bizarre thing to say, but it was such a beautiful film about kind of the power of being positive in a really awful scenario that was just, it's even Oscar baity in what it is as well. And for the fact that then it didn't win to Shakespeare in Love really is a travesty. So we're 2 for 2, and they completed 2 different films. The only reason I think Saving Private Ryan, it's a great film in sequences, but it's not a great film as a collective. It's a good film, but the parts are excellent, but the production of it altogether isn't as good as its parts, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's not stellar, is it, that one?
I've never heard of this film before, and I've just looked it up. It's Italian.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Stu, seriously, I've got it on DVD. If you struggle to find it anywhere, I don't think you will. There's some proper slapstick moments in it. They're really funny. Comic timing's really good. If you can watch it before I go to bed tonight, if you can just watch the first 10 minutes when he's in the car at the start, I know you'll love it. Because if you laugh at the first bit, because he's set just before the war, and it has this bit when he's in the car and it's dead slapsticky, and I know you'll love it. So just watch that bit and tell me how it went for you.
I'll have a look when we finish this.
Because I know you love that film, and when I saw it on this list earlier, I found it on a streaming service that I have, and I've put it into my favourites ready to watch, because I know it's one that needs to be watched. Because Roberto Benigni, the Guido in it, he actually won the Best Actor, the leading actor that year, ahead of Tom Hanks, which seems kind of amazing when Saving Private Ryan was the film of that year. So I was quite surprised when I saw that he won the leading actor. So I think I'll be giving that one a try myself.
Yeah, you should. It's excellent.
So the answer that I'm going to be giving you, I think Forrest Gump probably should have won. Not because it's the best film, but because it's the least offensive film of that year. And that's basically what the Oscars are about. They're not about telling you what the best film of the year is. It's about the one that the most people think is fine. So if you look in like the last few years alone, like Coda, no one's fucking watched Coda since. Only idiots like me who watch all of the Oscar films have even seen that crap. So that's what the Oscars are. You will get people who will be like wildly passionate about a movie, and that movie will probably divide people. You'll get people who will love it and you'll get people who will hate it. So it will never win. So the Oscar winner generally tends to be the third or fourth best film of that year because it's the one that most people think is fine. So I think Forrest Gump, I sort of understand why. And looking back historically, like it's aged badly, but it still has a cultural footprint. So I understand why. Whereas I think looking at American Beauty, that's not, like, it's a watchable film, but it's muddled as fuck. It's all over the place. It's not, like, the acting's fine for the vast majority of it. It's proper ham-fisted in the, look at this beautiful bag flowing in the wind. Like, fuck off. Like, it's so corny. It's so over-the-top nonsense. Whereas The Sixth Sense is one of the most talked about films that was released in the 1990s. And that 100% should have won the best Oscar that year. The Sixth Sense, even now, stands up against pretty much any other film within that genre. It is absolutely outstanding. And yeah, that should have been the Oscar winner that year, not American Beauty.
Do you think it's because, I mean, ruining The Sixth Sense in 2024, I mean, come on, grow up.
If you don't know your story by now, yeah.
You've had enough time. But that gimmick, being a gimmick, if you take that away, is it as good as you remember it is? Because watching it again for the first time after you know, it was amazing because you look at it, there's all the little clues all the way through. Then you watch it again after that. I didn't like it the third time I watched it. I thought, I didn't like it the third time. Obviously, the first time it's like, groundbreaking stuff. And then you go back and to figure it all out. But the third time, I thought, this wasn't as good as I remember it. Maybe it's because I watched it too quickly and it needed a bit of time. Maybe I'll go back now and watch it again after many, many years. I mean, a bit like, unfortunately, like we just mentioned Coda, we talked about Coda on here that year it came out. I don't remember even watching it. But obviously that's because of the incident.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things I have forgotten. But I wish I'd forgotten Sixth Sense so I could watch that again. Because I remember it almost beat for beat, and maybe that's why that it doesn't have the same impact. Maybe that's sort of a thing that, because that thing was such the big turning point of it and the talking point of that film, maybe it's kind of clouded people's judgments, but I don't know. Just an idea.
Matt, what do you think?
The Sixth Sense, for me, like, I remember seeing it the first time I saw it, and what year was the Sixth Sense? Sorry?
99.
99. So I'd have been 10 when it came out. Or 10 or 11. I genuinely, at the time, thought it was the scariest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. For me, it was a horror film. It wasn't a thriller. It wasn't like a psychological thriller or anything. It was a horror film. And I was terrified. It took me ages to watch it again. But yeah, it's funny because this is the question in itself, really, is what is the film that drops off the most at third viewing? Because once you've got out of the second one where you're then looking for all the hints that it was what it was, once you've seen that, then what else is there to enjoy of it? I guess is a really interesting way to look at it. I think it's great now, but at the time, it was fucking terrifying. And I didn't want to get anywhere near it after I saw it the first time.
It's interesting. I saw this film. I went in knowing what the twist was. and it did not spoil it for me in the slightest. I still thought it was an absolute masterpiece of a film. So,
How was it ruined for you? How did you know?
Everyone talked about it, didn't they?
Yeah, it was on Baddiel and Skinner Unplanned, and they mentioned it on there that Bruce Willis was dead was like the punchline to a joke, and that they made the joke of, well, if you don't know by now, fuck you, was sort of the joke.
Okay.
So I went in knowing it, but like I've got to be honest, like spoilers generally don't bother me, especially if it's a film that's been out over a year. At that point, it's on me if you get spoiled. It's not on the person telling you, the way I see it. But yeah, it didn't spoil it for me, and I even to this day I think it's either that or it's The Matrix from '99, because you could make an argument for either of those films. I think having probably the biggest cultural impact going forward into the next century. Stu, your question's up next, please.
Yeah, mine was just because it was on my mind because we talked about Lord of the Rings and the new the many new Lord of the Rings things that are coming out this year, apparently. And where would we be without it? Because if you look at it and look at the landscape of where we were before the first one came out, and nerddom, geek culture still wasn't a thing. Even he's still talking about. You can put the Matrix in that as well, especially comic book films. You like that kind of stuff. You got beaten to death at school, and then I remember the first trailer coming out for it, and say, "Oh, Lord of the Rings," and I saw it, when that come up on the screen. I thought, "Ha, ring piece, gay." Kid. That was genuinely. I was sitting with Dean. We was watching something, and that's because I knew he read the books. He loved all this stuff. He had what was it, Necromunda, the Warhammer variant. He had all the hive and everything on the cardboard. He built it all. He used to play after school, but no one ever talked about that kind of thing back then. He's in late 90s, early 2000s. It was just not a thing that was done. But after that, look what came after. Even something like just a few years later, Pan's Labyrinth. Everyone fucking watched Pan's Labyrinth. Even people who didn't like foreign films watched Pan's Labyrinth. That wouldn't have come around without Lord of the Rings. And obviously Game of Thrones probably wouldn't have got commissioned either. So is it one of the turning points of our world?
I think, like, I can't think of many things that made that fantasy genre as accessible, I think, before Lord of the Rings. I'm sure there were, but I think it was more of, like, when I think of fantasy prior to Lord of the Rings, I end up thinking of things like Labyrinth and things like that, which are more like magical than fantasy, and the big set-piece war kind of things. The first thing I think of is Lord of the Rings, so I think it's like the measuring stick for that genre. So for something that's now so old as it is, comparatively, to be the measuring stick, the yardstick for the genre shows its kind of cultural impact. And I struggle to think of things that, like, now, when you think of film and you think generally if you was trying to make small talk at a party or something or whatever, and you think, I'm going to talk about film, one of the first things I guarantee like people say is, what do you prefer, Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter? And like, its ability to just kind of seep into popular culture, even though it's something on the face of it super nerdy, super, like, doesn't feel accessible, but it really is. Everybody's like kind of seeing it now and knows something about it. And I think as a gateway to get people into that fantasy genre, it's done an incredible job, and it should get the credit it deserves for that.
It's probably the millennials' Star Trek or Star Wars, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I think they would have had, Gen X would have had that one. I think millennials had Potter or Lord of the Rings. And like, I do have a negative, but I'm going to save that point for Matt's next question, to be honest, because I do have something to talk about that world of stuff. But on the positive side, you are right. Like, it did open up this world to people that wasn't around, especially in the 90s. Like, Star Wars was sort of about as geeky as it got, that was still acceptable. But once Lord of the Rings came out, you had the people who loved Lord of the Rings they were so excited for it, and everyone was sort of giving a bit of a side eye, like, is this really going to be any good? Look at it, it looks nerdy as shit. And then when it actually hit and was this like fucking 5-star epic, you think, okay, well, yeah, everybody sort of got on board with this new way of cinema, and it did feel like it was a bit of a turning point, because those films, I haven't seen them for years, but they don't feel like they're 23 years old. They feel more modern than some of the films that we've had within the last couple of years, to be honest. So I do think it's had a big positive impact in some aspects, and I think it is that people now are quite happy to let their freak flags fly a little bit, and they're happy to show that they're nerds and stuff. And Lord of the Rings did break down that barrier for a lot of people, I believe. Super. So Matt, take us home, and what's your question, please?
Well, through the medium of a podcast, this is slightly difficult, but I assume we've all seen the picture on various tweets of Prince Charming, I think it is, from Shrek, with loads of swords around him. Basically, what film opinion do you have that would have people with their knives out wanting to get you in the street, Stu?
I mean, this is I can feel that Andy's heart rate going up now. And not like when I mounted him at Brentford either, for different reasons. The vast majority of films released before 1970 are unwatchable today. There was a certain way things were filmed, especially going like further back than that, going like 50s and stuff. Even the silly music that's over the top of them, and all that kind of thing. Nah, I have any. Don't work for me. But other than things like Wizard of Oz and stuff like that, and like Thief of Baghdad and things from my childhood that I remember, if that kind of stuff comes on, it immediately puts me off. And I know it's a kind of time and place thing, but I can't watch things that are that old, generally. There's the odd one, like I just said, that they filter through, that are okay. But if they're that old, it drives me insane, because they look terrible. And obviously this is a very visual snobbery thing. And obviously they can only do what they can work with. And I can sit there and watch Jason and the Argonauts over and over again and be absolutely fine with it. Things released around the same time, it despises me. It makes me angry. I can't watch them. I don't really know why. But on the whole, things from that far ago, that long ago, should be banished to where they're released there for a reason. They haven't been remade, and if they have been remade, it's generally terrible. But I can't watch the originals, and I can't watch things from before that period of time. Just can't.
Wow, incredible. Is it the painted backdrop that is the thing, like the time stamp that puts you off?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think it's the kind of type of acting as well, and there's a certain accent, especially American films. It's also like hyper stupid, and it just feels fake. It's a fucking film. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel right, and I don't know. It's hard to explain it. Because I can watch Confessions films, no problem. I'll go watch Carry On films from back then, no problem at all. But films with a bit like an effect or some kind of like, sorry, matey, I don't give a damn, or that kind of voice, it just pisses me off. I don't know why. Gone with the Wind is obviously an exception before people right in and have a go at me.
That shit. It's massively overrated. Gone with the Wind is.
It's fine. It's not the best film ever. It is fine.
Well, Andy, what's your film opinion that will get you on America's Most Wanted list?
I've got one quick one, that if someone tells me The Shawshank Redemption is their favourite film, never to listen to their opinion on film ever again. Because it's just a film that's ever been made. It's just a movie. They're just people who like to be told what to feel because it's so obvious and everything is fed to you like you're a child. So, yeah, Shawshank Redemption lovers, I don't get it. But the one that I was really wanting to mention, which leans into the Lord of the Rings chat from a minute ago, Spider-Man in 2000 is why the cinemas are on their arse as they are right now. Cinema was in a stronger position back when people would go to see the the latest Tom Cruise film or the latest Julia Roberts movie. But when Spider-Man made all that money, they learned quite quickly that it wasn't about, or they could get away without paying big actors to make these films. You could get away with quite literally putting somebody in a mask and making millions and millions of dollars. So they took that lesson and then they made stuff like Lord of the Rings, which is mostly with, smaller name actors, and it's very much the IP which sells cinema now. It's not sold on who the best director is. It's not really sold on who the best actors are anymore. It's sold on Iron Man. It's not Robert Downey Jr., it's Iron Man, it's Tony Stark. And I feel like that's the wrong lesson that we're learning. And it's sort of coming to a head now because the cinema chains, the studios have taught us, I say us, we're not the 4 films a year bunch, are we? Let's be honest. But those who only go to the cinema 4 times a year have been taught to only bother with these massive IPs that only go and watch Indiana Jones. But people have got tired of that as well now. So they're not making money on these big IPs. And nobody's going to see some of the smaller films that are released because studios have told us that they don't really matter. It's only the $300 million blockbusters that you should be wasting your time with. So now, nobody's going to the cinema to see a fucking thing. And all of a sudden, the cinema chains are starting to crumble. They're struggling to keep the money. They're struggling to keep the doors open. And Spider-Man in 2000 is the reason why.
The catalyst started this misery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is an interesting piece. There's a TikTok, if there ever was one. And if you're not already subscribed to us on TikTok, then please do. My one is, and I've felt this ever since I was in school, so this isn't like a flash in a pan opinion, but I really do not see what people see in Monty Python. I just think it's awful. I really do. Like, I swear it's more just a carry-on film than it is high art comedy. Like, people who love it really love it, and I get it because I obsess over things that like other people might find odd, like Spinal Tap, but I really don't get it. Like all of the things that people quote, like "We are the knights of Saint Knee" and all that stuff. I don't know what's funny about that. I just don't get it at all. It's like it's all of the things about being British that make me cringe is within Monty Python, and it should fall into the grounds of like things that were funny then but aren't now, like Fawlty Towers and things like that like are just in a time capsule of that was okay then, not okay in like a moral sense that it was funny then and it was then, but like we know deep down it was shit, don't we really? And that's how I feel about Monty Python. I just don't get it. It just ticks no boxes for me. There, I've said it. I've got it off my chest at long last.
What about the young ones and Bottom?
Yeah, I ain't like this, Stu, but I just think I haven't given like them the chance. But like Blackadder doesn't tick a huge amount of boxes for me, but then there are elements to it that I really enjoy. So what's the fucking Rick Mayall's character in that?
Lord Flashheart.
Yeah, like that is hilarious. Like, but I don't like in small doses. Like I could take that amount of energy in a character. From what I understand, that is Bottom all the time and the young ones all the time, and that's just like a little not too intense for me because that makes me sound like a fanny, but it's just not my kind of comedy, I guess, all the time. And it's not to say I don't like
24/7.
Yeah, and that's not to say I don't like comedy from a certain time period as well, because like Porridge and stuff like that, absolutely love. So it's not like it's a time thing. Yeah, but Monty Python really does nothing for me. I'm sorry.
I think it might. You say it's not a time thing, and this is why the youth shouldn't be allowed to have anything at all. It's very much a kind of not so much a time period. When it was going out, it was one of the biggest things because it was like the TFI Friday years and that kind of thing. We always used to talk about it at school. Like we would have a planner. Like, yeah, you watch TFI at 6, then the early one, and then you watch Bottom at 9, and then you watch the late version of TFI, which is the same show, but raunchier and more crazy. And that was the thing. It was very much of the time, and everyone watched it together. I sent Nate a clip of Bottom before, and he's like, "What is this?" Because it doesn't make any sense, does it? It doesn't make any sense at all. It's just two idiots hitting each other. And there was a clip of the where they go to the Wolford Hotel, and he's got the boobs on his back, and it doesn't. It's stupid, and I think that's what Monty Python is as well. There's some parts of Monty Python I don't get, and I grew up with it because my dad loved it, and it was always on whenever it was on telly, like Fawlty Towers. Whenever it was on the telly. It was never, oh yeah, there's something else on the other side. We're gonna watch this. So I kind of grew up with it, like I grew up with like Thin Lizzy and Slade. So being exposed to it through my whole life, there's bits of it that are very childish as well, even for like things, even for the time then. But then for the same reason, obviously the Young Ones was on before we were born, but it was on telly all the time when we were growing up, and then that led to Bottom. So I know what you mean. I don't get part of Monty Python either, but parts of it, and the films especially, the films are excellent. Life of Brian is superb. But if you didn't grow up, but if you didn't grow up with it, then I can easily see why you look at it and think this is childish shit.
Because all I'm hearing is I enjoyed it because there was no choice. And I had to. That's what I'm hearing.
Oh yeah, we were fully used to it.
There was no viable alternative, is what I'm hearing.
No, I enjoyed it, and I think the films do hold up. I mean, they're re-releasing Holy Grail, I think, this week. So I'm really looking forward to going and seeing this again. I do like it, but it's very hit and miss, especially the TV show. I do think it's very hit and miss, because at times it can be too silly. It's almost Little Britain-esque in parts, and it's just too much for me. But I think when it's good, I think it's great. But it's a very specific type of humour. And I think if you're not into slapsticky stuff, it's not going to work for you. So I get why you probably wouldn't like it. But I do. And like Bottom, I'm a massive fan of Bottom. I think that and Red Dwarf are like the two sitcoms that I grew up with. So yeah, I'll defend them to the death, I think. Right, so that's all of our questions done for this week. We're going to move on and discuss the Nick Cage classic, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. But because he's literally in this for 2 seconds and Matthew's had a very busy day, he's not going to be joining us for this one. So Matthew, would you like to say goodbye to the people?
People, what a pleasure it has been as always. Do us a very, very big favour. Tell a friend about this podcast and make us filthy rich, or just give us a few more listeners. That would be very much appreciated. Have a great week ahead. We love you lots.
Lovely. Cheers, Matt. We'll see you soon.
Ciao. How the hell do I leave?
Right. So, Stu, you and I, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Had you seen this film before, or is this your first viewing of it?
Oh no, that's why I reacted with glee when you mentioned it. That's why this was what we was watching, because I watched it for knockback, like you watch it for how it got made. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, how it get made. Yeah,
I watched it for knockback because they were talking about it, and before then I'd never heard of it. Obviously, because it's one of these films, and I can't believe it's as old as it is. And then I looked into who's actually in it. I thought, I can't like this, and so I watched it. At the time, maybe a year ago, maybe 18 months ago, something like that. And there's times where I would laugh out loud, like uncontrollably at it, because it's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous, the entire film. There's parts that Judge Reinhold's character it's about him, because the whole thing could be about his downfall.
It is absolutely absurd, isn't it? Everything that happens to him throughout that film. Like, at any stage, it just gets worse and worse and worse for him. And it's just so funny. He's great in that. I don't think I've seen him in anything else being that good either. Like, he's usually fine. He's a perfectly fine actor. But he was brilliant in that. Yeah. It's the bit where Phoebe Cates catches him wanking, and it just sort of...
The shame.
Yes. Yeah, I watched it a few years ago. I can't remember which film we watched, but I thought, well, I'm going to watch this as well. Because I think we did have a very brief chat about it, or I mentioned it at the time. So this is my second viewing of it, and I still really enjoyed it. I mean, we'll get to the good, bad, and the crazy in a second, but obviously this is a very American type of film, isn't it? This. Oh, they're not sophomores. What are they called when they're about to graduate their final year of high school? I can't remember what the term is. But that's what it's all about. It's that, that coming of age story where they're just about to become young adults rather than, old kids, effectively, I suppose you'd say. It seems to be a very American phenomena, which we've sort of incorporated a little bit with In-Betweeners and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like we had anything before the 2010s. I don't feel like there's anything comparable, is there, in British cinema history? Nothing that springs to mind, anyway.
No, really. I think it's like Saved by the Bell, isn't it? This thing, but we don't have that whole, what is it, upper school, secondary school kind of, oh yeah, you can get a car at 16, drive around and do what you want kind of vibe here, because it's not possible. So it's very different. And I think you're right, the In-Betweeners is probably as close as he gets, because that kind of does sum up what school is kind of like here. It's just a very different thing. It's like two cultures separated completely by a common language again, and this is the kind of stuff that you think, oh, why can't we go to school in America? And obviously you wouldn't go now because you'd be killed. But you know what I mean? It always seemed cooler. And then you watch films like this, and I'll mention later on as well. And it just looks like a lot more fun than what we've got.
It really does, doesn't it? I properly enjoyed this. And I think with American films of this genre, high school is a rite of passage, whereas I don't feel there was ever that moment in Britain, especially for someone of our age. I don't feel like graduating secondary school and going to college was really that rite of passage. College was the rite of passage. So maybe that's where the difference is between ourselves and the American system. That's where it hasn't quite translated as well. But this was as good as anything I've seen, like with American Pie and the likes. This, I felt, was a much better film. This is one of the best films I've seen of that genre, I think. There's very few that sort of stack up to this, that are as funny and have quite a dramatic element to it as well. I feel like a lot of other films, they either do the drama or they do the comedy, but this one managed to get a little bit of both in there, and I liked it for that.
Yeah. And you've got the whole thing about the own clothes and stuff like that we don't have here. Something as simple as that you look at it and you think, yeah, it's obviously very different. It's a different way of doing things. And I was trying to think, is there any, obviously, did you ever watch that Waterloo Road? Have you ever seen that show on BBC?
Years and years ago, I think I've seen an episode or two, but I didn't watch it religiously now.
Because even that's more about the teachers than anything, the pupils, obviously, because kid actors are terrible. And obviously these people are not kid actors, are they? They're in their 20s pretending to be teens. Yeah. I presume so anyway. Even though Phoebe Cates in that bikini is a sight to behold.
That's the sexual awakening of like pretty much everyone in America, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. And every time we mention her on here, they thought, it's such a shame that she just disappeared.
I mean, she was even lovely in Drop Dead Fred. Like, she was still lovely at that point, and you just don't see her in anything. Looking on IMDb, she was in The Anniversary Party in 2001, and then Lego Dimensions game or TV show. I don't know what that is.
I've got Lego
completely vanished. She's Kate Beringer. I don't know who that is, if that's like an old character of her. Gremlins 2. Gremlins 2 character name. So she's she plays her own character in Gremlins.
Yeah.
But it is kind of sad that we just stopped seeing her, because she does seem lovely.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're good, bad, and crazy on this one, Stu.
I mean, the good is the fact. I mean, we go what I said earlier about old films and how I don't get them past a certain point. Obviously, 80s and 90s is my jam, my time to shine. I can't believe how old this film is, and yet
82, yeah.
Well, now that's the crazy part for me, that it doesn't feel old. Obviously, taking without phones and things like that.
Yeah.
But you take all the modern stuff away, and the setting and the themes and just like the carrot thing, the carrot scene, and like how he gets the kid with a massive head. And he comes too soon, and then she makes it out that he's a massive, like he's a super lover and all this stuff, and he can't handle the pressure. It's just perfect. Everything about it it's just genius. The crazy is the fact that it's as old as it is, and he really doesn't feel like it. The good, it's genuinely hilarious, which a lot of these films are not, and they age very badly. If anything, this has aged better than American Pie has.
Definitely, yeah.
I mean, the bad is the fact that we never got a sequel, I suppose, and the fact that Nick Cage is in it for about a minute. Because I would have loved something else in this world, but obviously it's never going to happen. If it came out now, we'd get about 5 of these, like we ended up with American Pie.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish they had done more, because these characters are genuinely lovable. Even though I know you'll mention Sean Penn. I didn't even know that was who that was until the end. The first time.
Really?
No, I had no idea, because I've looked at it. I thought, oh, Sean Penn, whatever. And then obviously Judge Ronald looks the same in everything he did at that time, and so did she. And I never even thought about it after. I thought, well, where was Sean Penn? And the fact that he's one of the main characters and he's just high all the time. No idea.
Interestingly, you said you wanted more. 1986 TV series, 7 episodes, Fast Times. It doesn't have any of the same actors in, but it does have the same characters. So Stacey, Linda, Spicoli is played by Dean Cameron. I don't recognise any of the names. So Patrick Dempsey plays Mike. Vincent Schiavone plays the biology teacher again. Oh, Wallace Langham, who was in CSI, for any CSI fans. There's not many names in there that you'll recognise, but they did give us more in that world. Because I completely agree. I would definitely have liked more. I think it's a really tight 90 minutes. I would have been happy with another 20, 30 minutes on this. Because my bad is that they focus on 6 or 7 different characters, and I just kind of wanted a little bit more. After the abortion storyline, I kind of wanted to see more of Judd Reinhold and Evan Rachel Wood's characters, their relationship and how it affected them going forward. Just gives that little bit more of insight just behind what you've given us. I think that would have been really interesting, but I don't know if I'm just being greedy with that, if that's just me or if that would have been the right thing to do. Jennifer Jason Leigh, not Evan Rachel Wood. So that would be my bad. I just wanted more because I really enjoyed it. But my good is I thought this was a fantastic film. As I said, I think this is one of the best films of that genre. You are right. It does hold up a lot better than American Pie and, was it Road Trip and Euro Trip and all of those shitty films that they released in the wake of the success of the American Pie movie. This was such good fun. And it also had that dramatic core of when Jennifer Jason Leigh fell pregnant. Excuse me. Yeah, when Jennifer Jason Leigh became pregnant and she needed to get the money together to get an abortion, and that whole storyline was really out of nowhere. Not out of nowhere, because it was plotted throughout the film and they did it perfectly well. But watching it, I remember first time I watched it, I didn't expect that to be in the middle of it. Didn't expect this dramatic core that was surrounded by all of this really good comedy. So, yeah, this was really up my street. The crazy. So I've got 2 pieces of trivia for you. So I was surprised to learn that this is loosely based on a book of the same name by Cameron Crowe, the guy who wrote, he was like a Rolling Stones journalist and he did Almost Famous. He re-enrolled for the final year of high school when he was 22 years old, pretending to be a student. So he did the Drew Barrymore never been kissed thing in real life. He wrote the book and then the characters were then taken from that book and put into this film. But like, how on earth did a 22-year-old man manage to fucking re-enroll into high school? Absolutely ridiculous. And the other thing is, this was a breakout film for Phoebe Cates, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Sean Penn, Judge Reinhold, Nick Cage, Forrest Whitaker, Eric Stoltz, Pamela Springsteen, who is Bruce's cousin and was the star of Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3. I can't think of many films that launched that many careers that have all gone on to have like various levels of success, but they're all names that 40 years later still get mentioned. I think that's just absolutely incredible, the footprint that it's left. Before we get on to the questions we normally do, Stu, I have got a different one for you specifically. 12 months later, we get Valley Girl. Which one are you taking with you? Are you taking Fast Times or are you taking Valley Girl? Take the Nick Cage out of it.
Valley Girl seemed to be almost like a kind of the natural evolution of this film. And then from Valley Girl, you know, I'll bring it in now. St. Elmo's Fire is what the next stage after that is. Them three as a trilogy is fucking incredible. And you remember when you used to have the DVD box sets of three random films that are not even connected to each other? This would be one of them. I love Valley Girl so much though. I think, but I laughed more at this one, but I think Valley Girl's something else. I can't betray it.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I'm definitely taking this one personally. I think it is a better film, but I know you do have nostalgia for that film for some very bizarre reason. So the Nicolas Cage of it all, he doesn't have a speaking role. We see him, like even the one scene where we see him, he's not even facing the camera. He's got half of his back to us. You know, that's not great acting, is it, mate? I think if this was his sizzle reel, he would have struggled to get another role after this one. But I don't think we can really answer if he was good or bad on this because it's just a null and void, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I'd like to think that he'd be kind of like a DJ Qualls figure.
Yeah.
You know how nerdy and lanky he looks in this. But again, we'll never know.
Yeah, that's it. So I'm guessing your answer to the other question that we normally ask, which is, did you enjoy this film, is a resounding yes by the sound of it.
Yeah, I absolutely love it.
Same here. Like, I think if this was eligible for the Nick Cage top 5, I don't think it would hit the top 5, but I think it's not too far off, if I'm honest. I really enjoyed it. It would definitely be in the upper third of his films. Personally, for me, I think it was, it would fall in the top 33%.
Yeah, easily. So for me, it'll be in. I mean, how many have we done now? Is it 65 or something like that? This would be in the top 20 easy.
Ooh, absolutely. Right, so that was your film for if you enjoyed Fast Times at Ridgemont High, you may also like. Is there any other film that you can think of that would be worthy of a watch?
I mean, American Pie is like the modern remake of this, isn't it? Let's be honest. And I would kind of be interested to see doing it now, what that would be like, if it was even possible. I guess that Sex Education on Netflix is kind of like a similar vibe, but
Right,
not as funny. But I don't think you'd be able to do it anymore. I think it'd be too dangerous, and it cause too much chaos to try and make it one of them films again. I think St. Elmo's Fire is kind of ruined now because that Virgin Media advert with the goat has stole the song, which no one heard that. No one knew that song existed before. But it was, it's a secret club. Whenever that comes on and you request it and stuff, and wedding discos like we talked about last week. I've done that a few times. I'll give thing for us to tell West Fire, oh, banger, put it on. No one knows what it is. Everyone just thinks of that Virgin Media goat now, so it's all ruined forever.
Ruined it.
But that film is good. It's not funny like this, but it is of a kind of snapshot in time of that kind of thing. Again, for something that we never experienced. It's got a similar kind of, this is Americana that we don't have. It's probably not actually anything like this. But this is what that stage of the people's lives, from moving from there into the real world and them losing their friends that they've grew up with, kind of thing. This is how this pans out. I think if you watch this and doing the DVD trilogy, I think that'd be actually a really good experience. So I'll go for St. Elmo's Fire.
I did a sort of similar thing to yourself, thinking about this movie, but from a different side. So I think like the main two actors in this, or the main two stars really, are the two girls. I think if you wanted a boy's story, you'd go for something like Weird Science, which obviously takes this to like that next level of stupidity. But you could probably pick any of the John Hughes films, to be honest. I think would be quite comparable. Obviously, they're from a similar period of time and they deal with a similar setting. So I think any John Hughes film, I think, would be a good accompaniment to this. But the film that I was going to recommend is Juno. So I think if you want something that's like a really well-written film that centres around a dramatic event being the pregnancy of a girl who is not ready, but obviously in Juno she doesn't keep the baby, she has the baby and then adopts it out. It's got, obviously Elliot Page is in it, Michael Cera, Jason Bateman, Jennifer Garner, Alison Janney, J.K. Simmons. Ticked a lot of boxes for me because that is a very strong cast. So I loved that one. And I think I watched a YouTube video the other day, funnily enough, about it and how it was written, and there was like 4 different storylines all revolving around that pregnancy. And it's actually just a really well-written, really clever film. I think Diablo Cody won the Oscar that year for Juno as well for script writing. But I think that's an excellent movie. It's definitely worth a watch, that one. Plus, much like this, it's got a really good soundtrack as well.
Can you... Is it... Have you watched it since... I'm just going to get it completely wrong. What they are now.
I haven't watched it I don't think I've seen it since he transitioned to Elliot. It's such a minefield, isn't it? Obviously, I know what we're talking about. We meet over fence. We're very excellent of everybody on this podcast, and
because I don't know because obviously there's that game that he was in when he was she that I never played. And I always wanted to play it, and it was when it was re-released on PS4. There's a version because it was originally released on PS3. It was all out of time, and like the start was like Pulp Fiction.
Beyond Two Souls, is that the one?
No. Beyond Two Souls. Oh, yeah. Beyond Two Souls. Yeah. It's Heavy Rain was first. And then that's the Beyond Two Souls. And then
it was Heavy Rain, yeah.
It was a sequel to Heavy Rain.
Oh, shit, I didn't realise that.
In a kind of anthology way. It was made by Quantic Dream. But Beyond Two Souls, it was... But because it was set out of order, it got review bombed and people hated it. But then when they re-released it on PS4, it was patched so that you could play it in chronological order, and it was better, apparently. But I never played it. But
no, neither did I. I wonder if it's on
it's
network.
You probably own it anyway. See,
I've got that video. I just don't know what the fuck's on there.
I've got 440. I don't know. When I looked the other day when I was putting my PS4 back in action again. Playing that when he made it as a she. I don't know. I don't know how because I've never experienced that before. So I guess it's no different to someone. They're still playing a part, but it's having that knowledge. If that's going to mess with your head, I don't know. Not feel.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't think personally that it would affect me. I think I could still watch it, and it's separating the art from the artist, I think. And I know we usually use that in a negative connotation. That's not what I'm doing here. but it's just recognising that the character they're playing isn't the person they are, regardless of what's happened since in the outside world. So, I mean, you're very good at separating the art from the artist as well, Stu. So I think
I don't.
because we haven't experienced it, I think we would probably not even bat an eyelid when we do.
Yeah.
Try to be I think that's where we would stand with it. But you are right. Like, it's not something I've thought about at all. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But that was a film I love, so I'm quite looking forward to that one. Giving that one a watch again.
Yeah.
Plus Jennifer's Body as well, which followed it up. Like, Diablo Cody was such an underrated screenwriter. I feel like she got done dirty, to be honest.
Yeah, I never watched Jennifer's Body.
It's a bit like, you know, how Showgirls has had a bit of a reprisal now when people are saying, actually, there was some good to this film that was shat on. Jennifer's Body got that. I think because, what's her name? Megan Fox had gone from being this person everyone loved to this person everyone hated right around the time that film came out. She kind of got done dirty. And Megan Fox is a much better actor than she's given credit for, to be honest, but I think that's another conversation for another podcast.
Yeah, people shit on her because of how she looked at a certain time before she ruined herself. Beauty taxi, I suppose.
Yeah, I think there is a certain element to it, to be perfectly honest, yeah. Anyway, we'll save that one for another week. We've got a podcast coming up next week with our good friend, Mr. Ash Nolan. We'll let you know what it is next week because I still can't quite get my head around what we'll be doing, but we'll see. Anyway, please make sure you subscribe on whatever podcatcher that you're listening to us on now, and please leave us a review. A 5-star one at that would be phenomenal. What else have I got to say? Oh yeah, so Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at Cage Fighting Pod, emails to cagefightingpod@gmail.com. Is there anything else I'm doing the sign off? I can't even remember. It feels like it's been ages. For this week, Stu, would you like to say goodbye?
Sugar puffs have never been replaced. It's all of me. Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. And remember, be excellent to each other.